Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling something that I'm sure a lot of you have thought about. It's the relationship between social media and sleep and emotional stability. And we're going to be looking specifically at a research study from 2024 from Universitas Indonesia Maju. And the really interesting thing about this one is that it focuses on nursing students. So we're talking about people in a high-pressure field with very high stakes.
Yeah, it's a great group to focus on, especially because, nursing students in that age range, 19 to 21, they're digital natives. And Indonesia has seen a huge explosion in the use of social media. Just in 2023 alone, they added more than 10 million new users, bringing the total to 212.9 million. So that level of just, everybody being on social media really makes you stop and think about the consequences.
Yeah, it's like we're all swimming in this digital world now. So this study, they surveyed 122 nursing students, and they were looking at their social media habits
Mhm.
and their sleep quality and their overall emotional stability. What was the thing that surprised you the most when you first started reading this research?
The thing that really jumped out at me was just how many of the students had what they classified as high social media usage. It was over 85%. And then what's even more worrying is that almost the same number, like 86% of them, said they had poor sleep quality. And that's a really big warning sign.
Yeah, those are some scary numbers. I mean, I'm guilty of staying up way too late sometimes scrolling on my phone,
Mhm.
but I never really thought about how that might be affecting how I felt the next day.
Yeah, and that connection is exactly what this study is all about. I mean, we've known for a while now that the blue light that comes from our devices can actually stop our bodies from making melatonin, which is the hormone that helps us sleep. And that throws off our natural sleep cycles. But this study takes it a step further, and it looks at how bad sleep, which is often made worse by spending too much time on social media, can actually lead to becoming emotionally unstable.
Okay, now I'm really interested to hear more about that. Can you explain, like, what's the step-by-step process there?
Sure, so let's imagine you're a nursing student, you've got a really busy schedule, and you're up late at night on social media. That blue light is going straight into your brain, and it's stopping your body from making melatonin.
So you're not getting that good deep sleep that you really need to function properly.
Exactly, and that's where the problems start. When you don't get enough sleep for a long time, it can really mess with your ability to handle your emotions. You get irritated more easily, you're more sensitive to stress,
Yeah.
and it's harder to keep your emotions in check.
It's kind of like you're running on empty. Like your emotional gas tank is almost on fumes.
I like that analogy. That's a good one. And then on top of all that, you've got the whole nature of social media itself. You're constantly seeing all these perfect images, these snippets of people's supposedly perfect lives. And that can make you start comparing yourself to others and feeling insecure, especially if you're a young adult and you're still figuring out who you are.
That's a really good point. And it actually ties into something else the study found. Almost half of the students said they had moderate emotional stability.
Mm-hmm.
And a pretty big chunk, 41%, were classified as having low emotional stability. And it's important to remember, those aren't just numbers. We're talking about real people dealing with real emotions here.
Absolutely. And those feelings can get even worse because social media kind of encourages you to compare yourself to other people. In fact, there's even a term that researchers use now. They call it depression Facebook to describe all those negative feelings you get when you're constantly comparing yourself to what you see online.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a recipe for disaster.
Hmm.
You're not sleeping well, so your brain's not working properly.
Yeah,
And then you're scrolling through this feed that makes you feel bad about yourself.
it's a dangerous combination. And for nursing students who are already dealing with all the stress of school and clinical work, it can make it even harder for them to cope. It can affect their decision making, and it can really impact their overall well-being.
It's kind of scary when you think about it. Like, there's this whole other layer to social media that we don't always see. So what can we do about it? Is it as simple as just logging off?
I wish it were that easy. But human behavior is complicated. Luckily, this study doesn't just focus on the problem. It also talks about some potential solutions.
Okay, I'm all ears. What can people do to protect their sleep and their emotional health in this digital world?
The first step is awareness, like we've been discussing. You have to realize that scrolling mindlessly can have a real impact on your mental and emotional state. But there's some more concrete things you can do too.
Like, I need some practical advice here.
Well, remember we were talking about blue light and how it messes with melatonin production? One of the easiest and most effective things you can do is to create a digital sunset.
A digital sunset. I like the sound of that. What exactly does that mean?
It basically means winding down your screen time in the hours before bed. Just like you dim the lights in your house to get ready for sleep, you dim your screens too. Put your phone away. Give your brain a chance to switch into rest mode.
So like trade in the late night scrolling for reading a book, or taking a bath, or even having an actual conversation with someone.
Exactly. It's about consciously making a change and replacing those stimulating digital activities with things that help you relax and get ready for sleep.
That makes sense. But what about the emotional side of things? How do you deal with those feelings of not being good enough or comparing yourself to others? You know, the ones that pop up when you're scrolling through your feed.
That's a tougher one.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some things you can try. One helpful tip is to be more aware of the content you're consuming. Remember, social media is often just a highlight reel. It's not real life.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that when you're seeing all these perfect vacations and families and achievements.
Right. So it can be really helpful to curate your social media feeds intentionally. Unfollow accounts that make you feel bad about yourself
Oh.
or trigger those negative comparisons. Follow accounts that inspire you or make you laugh, or accounts that share information that actually adds value to your life.
It's like cleaning out your digital closet. Get rid of the clothes that don't fit anymore or make you feel good.
Exactly. It's about taking control of your digital environment and choosing what you let into your mental space.
Okay, so we've got the digital sunset for better sleep and a curated feed for a healthier mindset. Anything else we can add to our toolbox for dealing with the emotional roller coaster of social media?
Absolutely. It's also super important to develop healthy ways to cope with stress and regulate your emotions in general. When you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious, don't automatically reach for your phone. Try to find other activities that make you feel good and help you connect with yourself.
Like what? What are some things that have worked for you?
Spending time in nature is a big one for me. It's like a reset button. Whether it's going for a walk in the park or hiking in the woods, or even just sitting under a tree, being in nature helps me feel grounded and calm. Other people find relief through exercise or meditation or creative activities, or spending quality time with loved ones. It's really about finding what works for you and making it part of your routine.
It sounds like it's all about building a life outside of the digital world. A life that's full of experiences and connections and things that bring you joy.
You got it. It's about finding that balance between the online world and the offline world, between the virtual and the real. And it's a journey, it's not a destination. We're all constantly learning and adjusting as technology changes.
That's true. And it's not about demonizing technology or becoming a hermit. It's about using technology intentionally and making sure it works for us, not
Yeah.
the other way around.
I completely agree. We have so much power to choose how we interact with technology. We just need to be aware of its potential impact and make choices that align with our values and well-being.
Yeah, it's like we've been trained to think of social media as this thing that's separate from us. But you're right, it's really all about how we choose to use it.
Exactly. And this study focused on nursing students, but I think these findings are relevant to pretty much everyone.
Oh, totally. I think anyone who's ever felt that twinge of jealousy when they're scrolling through their feed or, just gotten lost in the endless scroll
Mm-hmm.
can relate to what we're talking about here. So let's bring it back to our listener, the person who's listening to this right now. What are the main things you want them to take away from this conversation?
Well, first of all, I want them to know that they're not alone in this. The trouble sleeping, the emotional ups and downs, the pressure to look perfect online. These are things that so many of us are dealing with in the super connected world.
Yeah, there's something really powerful about knowing that other people are going through the same thing.
It's true. And besides that feeling of shared experience, I hope people come away from this deep dive feeling empowered to make conscious choices about how they use social media, to set boundaries, to curate their feeds, and to prioritize their own well-being.
I think those are all really important points. And it's good to remember that even small changes can make a big difference. You don't have to completely disconnect. It's about finding that balance that works for you.
Exactly. And that balance is going to look different for everyone. Maybe it's setting a time limit for how long you can be on social media. Maybe it's having certain times or places where you don't use technology at all. Maybe it's just being more aware of how you're feeling when you're scrolling. It's all about paying attention to yourself and figuring out what helps you feel your best.
We've talked a lot about how to minimize the negative effects of social media, but I'm curious, is there a way to kind of flip the script? Can we use technology as a force for good in our lives?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is definitely yes. What if instead of just focusing on reducing the bad stuff, we actively look for ways to make the good stuff even better?
Now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more.
Imagine using social media to connect with people who share your interests, to join communities that you care about, to learn new things, to support causes that are important to you, to share your own creativity with the world.
I love that. It's about changing our mindset. Instead of seeing technology as something that drains us, we can see it as something that can nourish us and connect us and inspire us.
Exactly. It's about using technology to make a positive difference in our own lives and in the world around us.
That's a beautiful thought,
No.
and I think it's something we can all work towards. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final question to think about. What if, instead of asking ourselves, how much time am I wasting on social media? We asked ourselves, how can I use this technology to make a positive impact on my life and the lives of others?
That's a really powerful question, and I think the answers might surprise you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We hope you learned something new. And, most importantly, we hope you feel empowered to take control of your relationship with technology.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep diving deep.